You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game, and we will be doing lots of politics and public policy. Well, actually, yes, lots of politics and public policy. I'm thinking our guest is Aaron Goldstein. He is like the premier criminal defense lawyer, right?
You could say that.
He's not going to fight with me on that, but he is. Very seriously, folks, he was lead counsel for Rod Blagojevich in trial number 2. That's a big deal. He's what, are you lead counsel or just one of the counsel for now Cook County Commissioner Bill Beavers, who will be going to trial in March, is that right?
March 11th. I'm one of the counsel.
You're one of the counsel.
Correct.
I was watching some of the two in politics, public policy on our mainstream stations. They said you're going to trial in January. You were supposed to go to trial in December, weren't you? And they kicked it over from December to March. So where did they get January?
Well, they were correct for a period of time.
Oh, for a short period of time it was January.
What happened was we had a jury ready to be picked. One of the attorneys on our team got sick, Victor Henderson.
Oh, that's right. So the status hearing you went to was in December or November, and he kicked it. And so that was a hearing before the January trial.
Correct.
And at that hearing in November or December?
It was middle, or actually early December.
And that hearing, that's when the judge kicked it over to March, I see. So they were right. They just were wrong in the sense that since this was just yesterday, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. I mean, does that scare you that a lot of mainstream media, when they interview, they don't know economics, which, okay, they don't know law, they don't know politics, they don't know squat. Does that scare you?
Well, what would scare me is if they didn't know the facts, and that does happen.
And that does happen. Okay, so Aaron Goldstein, what, 10 or 11 years in criminal defense. A lot of people like to say white collar, public corruption stuff and all that stuff. Not you. You just say criminal defense.
Absolutely, because I don't primarily just do white collar.
Rod was kind of an exception. Would you call what Rod was accused of white collar public corruption, or was that a mix between good old fashioned breaking the law and white collar public corruption? I know you're saying he didn't, but the accusations, the allegations, a mixture of like the stuff that's murder and rape and robbery, and then white collar public corruption. Not to say Rod was involved in murder and rape and so forth.
Correct.
But he was involved in something that was, some would say, way over the line. He was accused of that, and he's been convicted of that. I understand he still has an appeal, right?
Certainly.
But even in America, where we say you're presumed innocent until shown otherwise, once you're convicted, we can say you did it, right?
You could say he's been convicted, absolutely.
And that means he did it in the eyes of the law until it's reversed, or until it's reversed on appeal. Right?
In the eyes of the law, he's convicted, and if you want to say he did it, whatever it was you claim he did, certainly you could say that.
What would you comp a plea to? If I had to say, look, Rod Blagojevich, just to be, everybody knows watching this show, he was elected in 2002 to his first term as governor of the state of Illinois. He's a Democrat. Some Democrats try to forget that, but he is a Democrat. And in 2006, he was already under investigation. Everybody knew this. The feds were investigating him. And Speaker Mike Madigan and Mayor Daley, two of the mainstream champs, So I mean, you don't get much more mainstream Democratic than Mayor Daley, right? And Speaker Mike Madigan, two of the most powerful Democrats in the state of Illinois. No, the two most powerful Democrats. Mike Madigan rules. We love Mike because he gave us a 7-minute interview. You can find that on youtube.com/Public Affairs TV. So we love Mike for that, but people would say he rules with an iron fist. He certainly rules the Democratic Party. Some would say he rules the state of Illinois. Mayor Daley ruled the city of Chicago. They were co-chairmen. They were co-chairmen for the campaign to re-elect Rod Blagojevich. Sound right?
That's my understanding. I mean, I don't think Rod Blagojevich was in any way best friends with Mike Madigan.
But they were his co-chairmen.
Well,
they did not walk away. They didn't say, whoa, this guy's under investigation. We can't get too close to him. No, formally, they were, nominally, formally, they were running, not operationally, but they were the two guys put as the head of his campaign. That's what co-chairman means, right?
Well,
I mean, look, if we had Mayor Daley here, Richie, as his friends call him, I don't get to call him out. We'd love to have him on the show. If we had Speaker Mike Madigan here, they'd have to say they were co-chairman. If we, they were, right? And that's a big deal, because if they wanted to walk away, I know they were fighting and they were messing with each other, and But you know, Speaker Mike once called the President of the United States, Barack Obama, the Messiah, derisively, right? So he's had fights with people, and he's made up. The point is, the Democratic Party in the form of Speaker Mike Madigan and Mayor Richard Daley, in 2006, when Rod was running for re-election, they were foursquare behind him.
As was the entire Democratic Party, and obviously the state who voted for him.
And then, in 2008, when he was arrested, not so much. In December, was it December 8th he was arrested? What was that date?
December 9th.
December 9th, yes, sir, December 9th. Then they couldn't get far enough away from him, right?
Well, everyone ran. Everyone ran.
Democrat, well, but mostly his friends were Democrats. He didn't have a lot of Republicans. He had some, Stu Levine maybe, I guess, you know, but
I mean,
some of those technocrats or Republicrats, I guess they call them.
Correct.
But mostly, yeah, they ran away.
As do most people when someone gets charged.
And the lawyers who stepped up to defend him in that trial, the first trial, were?
Myself, Sam Adams Jr., Sam Adams Sr., Sheldon Sorosky.
These are people he knew. You didn't know him going back, but Shelley Sorosky, did he work in Shelley Sorosky's office for a time?
He did for a short period of time, a long time ago.
When he was just starting out in the law,
yes.
When he couldn't get a job, when he needed a break, Sheldon stepped up, right?
Yes.
Our good friend Sheldon Sorosky, seriously, he's not, we tape in Skokie, he's in Glencoe, right? He lives in Glencoe.
I know he lives in the northern suburbs. He's
a great guy. He bought me
person.
a sandwich at the corner bakery. Where was that, Shelley? I mean, he's a good guy. We love Shelley.
What kind of sandwich was it?
I don't know. I think it was turkey breast, my favorite, okay? It was a good sandwich. The point is, he's a good guy. He's right around here. Sam Adams Jr., Sam Adams Sr., they're good guys, okay? They're respected. And you, okay? You four did not run away. You didn't say, this is a hot potato, we don't want anything to do with it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You never run away because you say every person has a right to a defense no matter what he or she has done, right?
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly. I mean, that's I'm the opposite of that. I don't run away, you know, when it gets hot. Okay? I don't instantly...
You're like the guys at September 11th. They didn't run away from the building that was going down. They ran toward it. Well, you get your client. He's maybe going down. You don't run away from him. You run toward him.
I wouldn't
You're like
compare
the fireman,
myself to a first responder.
Well, you are a first responder. You are the first responder. Folks, if you get in trouble, if you get arrested for something, if you're accused of murder, rape, mayhem, theft, public corruption, stealing, selling a Senate seat, what do you call? We can't do ads here, but seriously, you were one of those people would think of, right?
But here's the thing. When Patrick Fitzgerald gave the press conference and he said he was selling this Senate seat and Lincoln would roll over in his grave, I instantly gravitated towards that because to say those things that quick and for the quick finding of guilty by the press and the public, I just instantly wanted to see more. And I don't
see, what does that mean, see more?
I wanted to know more. I don't believe everything that the media or Mr. Fitzgerald tells me right off the bat.
Like Patrick Fitzgerald, okay, he is the legacy of Peter Fitzgerald, the U.S. Senator, Republican, who was elected in 1998 and served one term. He was a one-termer. He decided to declare victory and go home, essentially. But I'm sure he would say the thing he is most proud of, there are a few other things, but that he did a search in the country, and he didn't want the U.S. Attorney to be from Illinois. He didn't think you could find somebody who was as neutral as he wanted. And so he went to New York. He found Patrick Fitzgerald. He upset a lot of people here by doing that, by implying you couldn't find somebody in Illinois who could be the fair, aggressive U.S. Attorney that he wanted to look at corruption, whether it be in the Democratic Party, or the Republican Party, or anywhere. Patrick Fitzgerald was brought here. A year or two later, he indicted George Ryan. That was a big deal. He wasn't sitting as governor then, but he had been. We've seen a few governors go down before in Illinois. That's our specialty here, our governors, okay? But not so recently. Well, Dan Walker was the last, but Dan wasn't really indicted for anything he did in office, right?
Correct. I believe it was tax related.
Something, yeah. So he went after George big time, and that cut to the core of what many people do in government. You and Carolyn Gerlin, those may say they weren't doing anything wrong. Larry, what's his name? Larry with George Ryan. What's his friend?
Warner.
You know, those guys weren't doing anything wrong. There was just a misunderstanding here. I don't know, but the point is, Patrick made a name. He went after George. He put him away. He's an old guy. People felt some sympathy for him. The law firm of Winston and Strawn, who'd stood up for Rod Blagojevich, didn't they?
They had represented him while he was governor.
Yeah, their specialty is representing governors who are accused, right? Because they represented George Ryan, too. Free, right? Pro bono.
Correct.
Jim Thompson was running that firm, and he doesn't forget a friend. And a bunch of his partners, they probably lost a Porsche or two over that. Think of that money. That, what was it, $10 million? What was that cost?
It was a lot of money.
You take $10 million, you divide it, how many partners do they have? I don't know, 1,000, 1,500? It's like driving a Porsche right away from your garage, I mean, to defend George Ryan. That says something about those folks. They would rather have a good defense for George Ryan than a Porsche. Would you? You might have both. But seriously.
I would rather have a good defense.
But seriously, so that's what Patrick Fitzgerald means. And you're saying still, okay, Patrick says this about Rod Blagojevich, but you didn't like that tone. You didn't like the comparison to Lincoln rolling over in his grave. You thought that was unfair, right?
It was absolutely unfair.
You thought that was
tainted the entire case.
And it tainted the jury.
Absolutely.
The jury pool, which Rod was accused of doing when he went around the country talking about his case, before the trial. You're saying the U.S. attorney right off the bat was tainting the jury pool.
Tainted it for the entire case, absolutely.
The entire case.
I mean, what Rod did when he went out on the media, he was trying to rebut what Fitzgerald had started.
Wasn't he trying to maybe, if he got lucky, he's on TV nationwide, but that includes in Illinois and Cook County. There's the jury people, lots of potential jurors could have been watching, and they see Rod at his best. He's a likable guy. He says he didn't do anything wrong. Didn't he think maybe he'd get lucky and he might give one juror who became persuaded that Rod hadn't done anything wrong before the trial? The juror might go, might not say he was persuaded or she was persuaded, sit on and then Rod would have tainted the pool. I mean, it had to be a little bit of what he was doing, right? It's not illegal. He wasn't doing anything illegal.
There wasn't an issue with getting lucky or tainting the pool. It was an issue of getting your story out there. And he wanted to
And you're allowed to do
facts.
that? You're allowed to
Absolutely.
do that?
We live in America, the First Amendment.
Did the judge say, the judge could put a gag order and say you can't be doing this, you can't be running around TV tainting the jury pool? The judge didn't say that?
He did not say that. What is
You can't do
very
that.
difficult
Wait a second,
is
don't leave home without it, see?
the Constitution.
Constitution. So
I
we
think
learned
it's
at
the first
Chicago Law
one.
School, don't leave home without it, okay?
I see, is that your sponsor on the back there, the Heritage Foundation?
No, we're fair and balanced, but sometimes you can pick up something. Look, if the Heritage Foundation wants to give me a Constitution, which I think has a value of $4.95, okay. I mean, what's that? The American Constitution.
The Second Amendment
what's that
is
Democratic
much bigger
group?
than
The
first
American
in that
Constitution Society or whatever it's called, ACS, right? You know, there's something in town. My point is, liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican, we're fair and balanced. But if I can get a useful document from either for avoid spending $4.95, you think I've done something wrong?
No. Is that the?
I might have even purchased this. I don't know.
Is that the Tea Party or the Heritage Foundation?
It says courtesy of Illinois Tea Party. See, I didn't even notice this. I should take it off. But it does say he's found me out. It says courtesy of Illinois Tea Party Patriots. IllinoisTea.org.
I don't think the Tea Party likes Fitzgerald too much, do they?
The point is, I'm not advertising for the Tea Party. I'm advertising for this, the U.S. Constitution. I have been telling this. I've told it to somebody who's, come to the United States, become a citizen, but I don't think she realized, even though, just how important this document is. A slight digression. This is perhaps the most important document that's a core or a part of the United States of America. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
And the First Amendment is perhaps that's why it's the First Amendment. They kind of did these things in order, right? The First Amendment, perhaps the most important amendment. And what does the First Amendment say?
Freedom of speech.
Congress shall make, Congress shall make no law
abridging
freedom of speech, and it's construed to be unreasonably. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't say free speech, right?
But you can say Lincoln's rolling over
in his grave,
and you could say I am innocent.
And you can go all over the country. Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty here, because Rod Blagojevich, he when Barack Obama was elected president, that vacated the U.S. Senate seat here in Illinois. And it seemed like Barack, from what we hear on the wiretaps and the phone conversations and so forth, it seems like he just realized then that that Senate seat appointment that he had, it was effing golden. He said that, right?
He did say that.
Effing golden. And he looked around and said, what can I do with this? I'm not just going to do it for gratitude. That's what the Obama administration was offering. That might have been an illegal bribe. Gratitude. What does gratitude mean? It means if you appoint Valerie Jarrett, friend of Barack Obama, to the Senate seat, you would have the president's gratitude. Isn't that what the president communicated, either directly or indirectly?
Well, we don't know what the president said because the president was interviewed. We've never seen those reports. We don't know exactly.
We think that's what he said.
There were emissaries that were sent to Rod, and they said a lot of different
Okay, the emissaries clearly said things like you would have his gratitude. Didn't that what Rahm said?
Well, Rahm Emanuel said grateful and appreciative.
Grateful and appreciative. Is that illegal?
It depends what grateful and appreciative means. And throughout the trial, we had a bunch of people get up there and define, and the term was, what did you understand something meant? Okay. What did you understand this meant? What did you understand that meant? And whenever it was Rod speaking, they understood, because these were government witnesses, they understood that everything he said meant he was trying to sell the Senate seat. It was their interpretation, their subjective interpretation.
He had that appointment and he wanted something for it. You don't disagree with that, do you?
Well, there were a lot of things he talked about wanting. No, first of all, I don't think he knew anything as far as appointing a senator, because he never made a decision.
No, let's go back. You can attempt to do something and that can be illegal even if you didn't complete it, right?
Absolutely.
Do you think, based on what we heard, just look at the evidence, not what you may have learned personally from Rod, the evidence at trial, do you think that evidence supported the idea that Rod wanted something for that Senate seat? He wanted either, might be an appointment to the cabinet, it might be a high-level position in a labor union that would pay a lot, it might be a substantial campaign contribution from Indian American friends of Congressman Jesse Jackson. It might be, you would say, and maybe it's the only benign choice of this multiple choice test, it might be Mike Madigan saying, appoint my daughter to the U.S. Senate and I will give you some of the legislation you want. Those four things, are any of them, if he wanted that, if we can show he wanted any of those four things, illegal?
No.
No. You can say, by golly, okay, Jesse, get your friends to give me a lot of money and I'll appoint you senator. You can do that. It's not illegal?
You changed the question.
Oh.
You said wanting something.
Oh, once you do that, once you make it clear that you want that and you're offering the Senate seat in return for something, then you've done something illegal.
Well, the offer, it becomes the potential attempt, the substantial step.
And your contention is he never offered any of those things that I said?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And the jury found he had offered that, right?
They did. They did.
And the jury found that in Children's Memorial Hospital, he basically was saying, give me a contribution and then I'll give you what you want in terms of reimbursement rates.
Not exactly. What Rod was accused of and he was convicted of on the Children's Memorial situation was that he had told the CEO of Children's Memorial, Patrick Magoon, he had told him that he was going to, as a state grant in essence, provide money that helped out the Children's Memorial Hospital. He was then asked later if Mr. Magoon was asked if he can have a campaign contribution or hold a fundraiser.
You think those are just like random, unrelated events? That's what your contention is?
Well, they were never connected in any way, and...
You don't have to. You're a smart guy, Aaron. If I say, come on this show and I'll make you a star, or I say, come on your show, and then I talk to you 5 minutes later and say, I think if you come on, you'll be a star. There's a connection there, right?
If it's an excellent question, because if the issue is connection, that entire prison should be full of every politician, because there's always a connection. And Patrick Magoon testified, the jury was not allowed to hear this, that Patrick Magoon testified that he was trying to get a similar type fundraiser, so to speak, or money to his hospital and other hospitals like his from the legislature. And what did he do while he's lobbying the Illinois legislature for this money? He's holding a fundraiser for Mike Madigan. He said, no connection.
Because you can't. But here's the problem Rod had, and you hit the nail on the head. Mike Madigan is one heck of a lawyer. I mean, his law school may not have been a national law school, but everybody knows. Speaker Mike Madigan knows the black letter law. He knows what he can do and what he can't, and he's careful. He's careful, I hear, what he says even though the door is closed, and he thinks he's alone. He understands there could be a wire anywhere, anytime. I haven't heard that. No, I'm just saying that's my understanding. The speaker has not told me that. But
what about the 7-minute interview? He didn't say that.
He didn't say that. I mean, knock it all you want. It was a good interview. It was a fair interview. And I thank the speaker for doing that. And I hope the speaker would come on the show and do a 30-minute interview. My point is, I believe the speaker knows what is legal and what is illegal. And I believe the speaker doesn't do anything illegal. And so you can't say, yes, there may be a connection in this informal sense, but the law permits that. What Rod did, it's just my opinion, yours is more important. What Rod did, based on what I've seen the jury say, what the evidence says, probably illegal. I'm not saying it should be illegal, okay? I'm saying based on what I see in the law and what I see people doing, that's the difference here. And you would know that. You're a lawyer. There are some things you can do that are virtually the same, but the law lets you do it. There are some things the law doesn't let you do it. You've got to know, I mean, you know, when you go to law school, they say, you know, we all had professors say, you know, law school, it's a matter of drawing lines. And a lot of people saying, I have trouble, you know, knowing where to draw the line. And my professor would say, I don't have trouble, I draw the line right there. It's easy, right? Mm-hmm. Rod didn't know where to draw the line.
Who would you ask to know where the line is?
Who would I ask if I, number one, Rod went to law school and he was a prosecutor. I might ask myself, so this defense that, Rod, I'm too stupid, I mean, maybe that's all you had, because you know, people say, you know, when the law's against you, argue the facts. When the facts are against you, argue the law. And when both the law and the facts are against you, just argue. A lot of people think that's what you're doing. Not a criticism of you, Aaron. Not a criticism of Shelley or Sam. And Sam, you did the best you could do with what you had. And for the first trial, this guy essentially walked. Yeah, he got convicted of lying. This was kind of a minor thing, lying to the FBI. You found a juror. The second time, not so much. But everybody knows, in the sense like everybody knows O.J. was guilty. I don't know if I can be sued for that, but I'd say everybody knows that. Everybody knows Rod was guilty in the eyes of the law. There are a lot of people who say,
what is
there's a lot of people who say, let him go for the reasons you've said. There are a lot of people who say, sure as hell doesn't deserve 14 years.
What is he guilty of?
He's guilty of selling the Senate seat. He's guilty of being crass. He's guilty of not even.
Is that against the law?
If you don't go through the motion, if you don't go through what the law says you can do, so you don't say, here, if you want this, give me that. That's what they construe. Essentially, that's what he said. If he had just said, look, go out there and try to get campaign contributions, and then said to these folks a few weeks later, oh, I'm thinking of signing this bill that will do that, and I'm still looking at that. Never connect the two. Never say anything in the room that connects the two.
That's okay for you.
I'm not setting the law, my
well,
friend.
If you're the jury,
I'm not setting the law.
If you're the juror.
I think the jurors understood what you say, and they think he went over the line. We got to go on. One last thing. In the law they say you got to have the necessary mens rea to be guilty.
Correct. You're
saying guilty mind. That's what it means literally in Latin,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Rod Blagojevich, you don't think he had a guilty mind?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Well, look, talking about people who get in trouble, it works always, because there's this Veneco affair, right?
Yeah.
What's the Veneco affair about?
Veneco is the nephew of Richard Daley, the former mayor, and he is now been charged with involuntary manslaughter. Dan Webb is the special prosecutor, and what basically happened, as I understand it, I don't represent Mr. Veneco, and I'm not in the special prosecution team, but this happened in 2004, and Mr. Kochman, I believe is his name, he was this young kid that got into a scuffle with Mr. Veneco outside a bar in Chicago on Rush Street, and Mr. Kochman died from that, supposedly a punch. And the state's attorney didn't prosecute. It was Dick Devine.
Mr.
At that
Vaneco
time.
ran away when this happened, didn't he?
That's my understanding.
And some of his friends ran away.
Correct.
And some of his friends lied and said they didn't know the friends, and then it turned out they did, right?
There's been a lot of different stories.
That seems to be some testimony, some
I don't know
not
that there's
testimony trial, but there's statements given to that effect.
There's a lot.
It sounds like some of the people who lied have said, yeah, I lied. We're not going to go through that all here, but I think, look, speaking loosely, not as a matter of law, I think all that happened. A lot of people say, look, there was enough to go after this guy, but somebody saw on the folder, it said Daley's nephew, and basically they looked.
They spelled Daley wrong, by the way.
Right, but D-A-L-Y instead of D-A-L-E-Y. Yeah, well, the frickin' schools in Chicago, we can't even teach people how to read or write. It's not shocking that they spell something wrong. That's a whole nother matter. Okay? That's something we ought to hang somebody for. Having 20% of the black kids in the Chicago public schools and 85% are minority be reading at grade level, that's something we ought to hang somebody for. You know? Really, that might be more important than whatever Rod Blagojevich did. I might agree with you on that. Having 20% read at grade level, having the Daleys there for 22 years and the other Daley there for 22 years, 44 out of 50-something years, and they can't teach kids how to read. They can't see that that happens. They can't introduce a little choice for schools. They don't care about low-income people. People are dying in Inglewood, and they're going after Rod Blagojevich. That's an argument.
You sound like Sam Adam.
Well, I take that as a compliment. Sam, come on the show. Okay, back to Vaneco. What do you think? If Vaneco came to you, what would your defense be?
Well, it seems pretty clear that it's a self-defense issue. And here's the thing. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not privy to all the police reports. I did view Judge Tuman's order.
We only got 2 or 3 minutes left, so be quick.
But what I would do...
Just say, we're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, and you'll get to finish that. I just very much want to thank our guest, Aaron Goldstein. He knows way more than I could even... He's forgotten more than I'll ever know about the law. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
He's your guy. Anything? Seriously, we can't do ads, but I know who I'm calling. If I get in trouble with the law, I'm glad I got that number in my pocket.
When you become governor?
Well, yeah, I guess I got to be governor to get... Anyway, got like a minute. What's happening? What would you tell Vaneco? Could you get him off?
Oh, I think he has a very good chance of winning, because as I understand it, the statements of all the witnesses are all over the place.
Was Daley involved? Was Alvarez involved? Was there a cover-up here? Was Devine involved? Were the police involved?
Here's
your
what
gut,
I know.
Your gut.
My gut is he definitely got preferential treatment because he's a Daley.
So,
because any normal kid, if this were a regular kid walking down the street that got charged with this, they would have arrested him immediately.
Are they going to put somebody there? There's an interim U.S. attorney, powers that be, the Senate, the president, going to put somebody there who's not going to go after Daley, not going to go after Alvarez, I'm not saying they did, but if they did, they're not going to go after Devine. They're not going to go after anybody who may have covered this up.
Well, Dan Webb potentially can. He's been empowered to
He can
to
go
look
after
into that.
any of those people?
Not necessarily Daley.
Does he
but
have that 5-letter word we said that rhymes with falls and calls? Does he have that? Does Webb have that?
Chutzpah?
No.
Does that rhyme with?
You know, play ball here. Does Webb have it to go after these guys?
He's an excellent attorney, I assume so.
Former U.S. attorney, right?
Yes.
As honest as the day is long, right?
That's what they say.
And if you're one of those guys, I'm
I
not
think
saying
he cross-examined Ronald
I'm not
Reagan,
saying
didn't he?
Daley did anything wrong. I'm not saying Alvarez. But if you did, I'd be shaking in my boots, wouldn't I? With Webb possibly coming after me.
If he can get the witnesses to corroborate
Because
what
if
he's
he
going
can get
after.
the evidence, he'll do it. He'll do it in a heartbeat.
I would assume so.
He's
been
the best
empowered
damn.
to do
He's
so.
the best damn defense lawyer. With all due respect, white collar public corruption. Is he the best in the city of Chicago?
I'll take the Fifth Amendment. That's in your. I think the Tea Party book you have there has the Fifth Amendment.
Why? How would that incriminate you if you said Dan Webb was the best? You think Shelley would be upset? You think Sam Adam Jr. would be upset if you didn't say they're the best? Are they competing? Is it all that?
Well, there's certainly a healthy competition.